Welcome to the What to Read Next podcast. This podcast is hosted by Laura Amin, a voracious reader of romance and young adult novels. In this podcast, Laura interviews fellow readers and authors and asks them for book recommendations of what we should read next. We hope you enjoy it. Hi, Lynn. Welcome to What to Read Next podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So happy to have you here. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am one half of the writing team of Liv Constantine. So I write with my sister, Valerie. And we've been writing together. We're actually working on our fifth book, actually sixth, really, if you count a book we wrote a long time ago, not under Liv Constantine. And I also write solo as Elsie Shaw, conspiracy thrillers.
I love this.
Thank you. I live in Connecticut by the beach. I have two 20-year-old twins and two big dogs, a lab and a golden. And we like to hang out with our dogs and go to the beach. And of course, I love to read.
So what inspired you to start writing with your sister?
We've always been very close and we've always been big readers. And and the funny thing is we have two brothers in between. So we're 14 years apart.
Oh.
So she was gone, right? Yeah, she was married, when I was still, younger and in college. And when I came back to we're both from Maryland. And when I came back in town, we just kind of started talking about it because we used to read a lot of books about a lot of ethnic books about different kinds of families. And we're Greek. And we started talking about the fact there really weren't that many stories about Greek families. And so we said, well, why don't we write one? And we didn't really know the first thing about writing. Other than, we both did well in school and writing and that sort of thing, but we weren't fiction writers. So I bought a book called How to Write and Sell Your First Novel. And we began working together over the course of about a year. And we finished our book and it's called Circle Dance. Mm-hmm. We published it under our own names. And that was the start. And then I had twins and moved away. And we both kind of, were involved in careers and whatever we were doing. And it wasn't until, I guess, 2000, maybe 15, when I went to a conference in New York called Thriller Fest. And I got serious about my writing again. It's when I finished my first solo conspiracy thriller. And she said to me, would you be interested in collaborating again? And I said, yes. And she came with me the following year to Thriller Fest. And we bought the rights back to Circle Dance. We edited it again and put it out. Because at the time it was published, this was before ebooks and all of that. So we put that on, made an ebook out of it and put it on Amazon. And then we wrote a book that ended up not getting published. It was in the drawer and we worked together. And then we wrote The Last Mrs. Parrish. And that was the book that launched our career together. So.
Oh my gosh. And what a book to launch, because
right.
It was picked by Reese's. So talk to us about the whole process of that.
Oh, that was amazing. So The Last Mrs. Parrish, it really came about. We were together. I was visiting her. We were just taking a walk and we were talking about these women who make a plan to go after a married man just purely for their money and, without regard to their family. And we started discussing it and we said, wouldn't it be great if this happened? And which is the twist in the book, which I won't say for any of the listeners that maybe haven't read it yet. And we said, that's the book, we have to write it. And we just really felt very much the whole time, like an urgency to get this book finished. We felt like it was very timely. It almost wrote itself. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have an agent yet. We got we had an editor recommend an agent that she used to be partners with. And we had like a list of maybe only 5 agents that we were going to submit the book to. And of course we had plenty of rejections on prior books. So I kind of knew, from going to Thriller Fest and Agent Fest, I knew a lot of agents. And so we just kind of said, let's just look at our top 5. And, when we got to Thriller Fest, I was going to meet this agent that was friends or prior partners with our editor. And she texted and said her lunch was running late and she, but she would have a few minutes in between. So I said to Valerie, I knew she had read a little bit of it and we had gotten a couple other rejections. And I said, I think if she wanted it, she would have said, I'm excited, don't sign with anybody else. I said, I think she's just being polite. So we were actually going to sign up for another pitch fest, which is a session where you can pitch it to other agents. And a friend of mine who was having lunch with her texted me and said, you don't have to go to Pitch Fest. So that was how I found out that she
Oh my
was
God.
interested. So I would like scream. We met her, and Bernadette is her name. And we met her in the lobby at Thriller Fest. And she was gushing about the book, and she said, we would like to offer you representation. And right away we said, well, we would like to take it. And so it was the most amazing experience, because we were with all of these other writer friends of ours who we'd been all together, year after year, trying to get an agent. And so it was the perfect place really to have that happen. And she said to us, this was in July, and she said, we'll go back. I'll get in touch with you and let you know if we think you need any more revisions before we begin to submit. And she called us maybe a week later and said, you know what? No, we think it's ready to go. And so she sent it out. And within a day or two, she had 2 preemptive offers, one from HarperCollins and one from William Morrow. And so we spoke to both of the editors, and we chose HarperCollins, and that was it. So it was pretty amazing. It was like, years and years of nothing. And then all of a sudden when it happened very quickly.
Oh my gosh. And then read these picks, and then it just like snowballs, and you have it.
Right. Yes. Exactly. So we've been very blessed, and yes, been very, very fortunate, because there are a lot of really wonderful books out there, as you know, and it's hard sometimes to get the attention of readers and to get the reach, because there are so many good books. So we are very appreciative of that.
I love the story. I think your book was the first book that got me into reading. Back again, like I've always been a reader, and for some reason, I think the year between 2012 to 2017, around that era, I just didn't have recommendations. I didn't have a place to find like books to read. And so I remember reading your book and devouring it, and then be like, okay, I need more of this.
Oh, that's so nice to hear.
There was no other book.
I love that. Oh, Ravar, yes. Now we're finally have a backlist, right? Yeah. We didn't then. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. I was like so mad. I was like, but I want to read more of her.
Oh, thank you.
So it's been fun. It's been like a dream come true getting to talk to you, because I'm like, it's full circle. Like, I have a podcast for book recommendations, so other people don't have to struggle what I was struggling once upon a time, where it was like, I just found a book and I really love it and I want more.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. Thank you.
So let's chat about The Stranger in the Mirror. What's the elevator pitch without giving us?
The Stranger in the Mirror is about a woman who calls herself Addison because she doesn't know what her real name is. She's had amnesia for 2 years. And the book opens when she's engaged to be married to this wonderful man in Philadelphia. But before that can happen, another man claiming to be her husband shows up. And it's been 2 years since she's had this amnesia, and has proof that he is her husband. And so she goes back to Boston with him, and over the course of the book discovers the truth about her past, which is not, all roses and great things. So that's the best. That's the most I can probably say without giving too much away.
It's a page turner. So what was the source of inspiration? Like, why pick amnesia, as a device? I live for amnesia, by the way. I love it in every genre that it pops up. It might not be in life, but it's like, I'm trash for it.
Yeah, I think, we were both really interested and fascinated by the idea of, how people cope with a situation like that, because we are so much comprised of our memories, and so much of who we are comes from our experiences and from our relationships with other people. And so we just thought it would be really interesting to have a character and to develop a character who did not know herself, and to see where that would lead us. And it was a little challenging initially, because we're trying to get to know our character, and she doesn't really know herself either. So, that was like a very interesting kind of exercise for us, because we had never had that before. Always with all of our characters, we know everything about them, they know everything about themselves, but she definitely came to life on the page. And we tried to put ourselves in her position. Of course, obviously, unless you've had that happen to you, you can't really know what it must be like. But we did try to imagine, as we were writing her, how would we feel? How would we relate to other people? How do you start a new life when you really don't know if you've left another life behind and other people behind? But
Mm.
by the same token, right, if you're not able to remember, you can't just stay in limbo for the rest of your life. So at what point do you decide that you're just going to move on and take that risk? And then how do other people deal with it? So there's a character in the book another point of view character, which is Gabriel, who is her fiance. It's his mother. And even though Addison is a lovely young woman, and and she can see that she loves Gabriel and Gabriel loves her, the mother is very concerned because she doesn't want her son to get hurt. And she says, what's going to happen if she does remember one day and she has another husband or she has another family? So we just thought all of those complexities and emotions and relationships would be something that we could really get interested in and get behind in developing this book.
Growing up, or do you end up reading like thrillers within the genre, or was it something you just realized like this is a genre that I'm interested in writing and and learning more about the craft that makes it for today's genre?
Right. I mean, we both, Valerie and I, we're voracious Nancy Drew readers, so we've always both liked mystery. As I said, we also, and I do think probably there are trends in literature at different times. So we read like Penn Merrick by Susan Howich, a lot of those family sagas that we loved. Probably with the exception of some mysteries and some Agatha Christie type of things, I don't really think we were that into thrillers for a while. But then, and I don't know that they were even called thrillers or if it was just fiction, but I loved Sidney Sheldon. I don't know if you ever read, that was from a long time ago, but his books were like The Other Side of Midnight. They were very twisty. I think they would be definitely called psychological thrillers today. So I've been drawn, I read broadly, but I've always been drawn to thrillers, and I love Dean Koontz. He's one of my favorite authors. And so it made sense, I think, for me, even though Circle Dance, our first book, was a family saga. And truthfully, even The Last Mrs. Parrish, really, when we wrote that story, it was about the story. We didn't set out to write a thriller. And we didn't really even know it was. I remember my sister-in-law saying to me, because both of our sisters-in-law are our first readers. And in fact, this book is dedicated to them. And we're very close to them. And they read all of our books before they even get to the editor. And her name is also Lynne, one of them. And she said, this is a thriller without a murder, The Last Mrs. Parrish. And it was so interesting. And so when our agent took it, she said the same thing. She said, this really falls in two categories. It's women's fiction and it is a psychological thriller. And I don't even know if women's fiction is a category anymore, if it's just fiction, but at the time, I guess they were still saying that. So from there, then when we wrote our next book, there was a murder. And, and I think in some cases, in some ways, the books got a little bit darker, but they all tend to focus on the domestic situation and the psychological thriller and the emotions and imbalances within close relationships, as opposed to what I write by myself, which is a more global conspiracy thriller with a bigger, with a wider cast of characters and more global stakes, less personal stakes, I guess.
Let's chat about some of your own personal books, like the ones you write by yourself. Like, talk to us a little bit about what can readers expect if they're looking for diving into your conspiracy thrillers.
Sure. So the two conspiracy thrillers that I write under L.C. Shaw, the first is The Network. And that's a book that really took over 10 years. It was always in my mind, and I was working full time. And so I'd write a little bit and pick it up and stop. And that is about, it's told through two investigative journalists, Jack and Taylor, who were childhood sweethearts and have not been together for over 10 years. He broke her heart. They're apart. She was remarried. And the book opens when her husband, who is a senator, is murdered. And he's asked Jack to come and protect Taylor. So they're off running for their lives. She's not too thrilled to be with him, but she has no choice. And what they're trying to uncover is this network that is controlling the media, the entertainment world, advertising, and government. So it's a global conspiracy that they need to find out who is behind this. And so the book takes off from there. And then the Silent Conspiracy continues their story. And it's just, they're not on the run anymore, but now they're facing this, they're both, like I said, reporters, and all of a sudden Jack is seeing these stories where people are normal people, well-balanced people are going crazy, killing other people and then killing themselves. So they're trying to figure out what's going on. So that's kind of the two books there.
I love this. What has been a couple books that you can recommend to our listeners to pick up?
Sure. I read Clara and the Sun, which was very interesting and sort of a interesting take on like technology and emotions. And currently I'm just diving into The Song of Achilles, which is, I think, a reimagining or a retelling of Homer and the Odyssey or the Iliad. So that ought to be interesting. Both a little different from the thriller genre. I do read a lot and enjoy that because we do often a lot of blurbs. So those are two, if you want to go in a different direction. And in terms of thrillers, there's a lot of great thrillers that are out now, like Mary Kubica's book, Local Girl Missing is I think was just released. And I know Riley Sager has got Survive the Night, and his books are always page turners as well.
I love this. Thank you. Tell us where we can find you online.
LynnConstantine.com. Liv, L-I-V, Constantine.com, which has links to all of our social media. And we're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And those are also Liv Constantine too for Instagram and Twitter. And I think Facebook is just Liv Constantine Author.
Thank you, Lynn, for being the show.
Thank you so much. It was great talking to you.
If you enjoyed this podcast, feel free to share with friends, subscribe, rate, and review the show. This is the easiest way to support the podcast. For book recommendations, author interview archives, and other fun book resources and tips, please visit WatchReNextBlog.com. The Watch Read Next podcast is part of the Frolic Network. To discover new shows to listen and love, please visit frolic.media/podcast. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day.